Bloomberg Audio Studios. Podcasts, radio, news.
Brad Later, great to see you, and definitely want to talk about your campaign and your platform, but I have to start with the news of the day, and that is this memo that came to light. I think the Times first reported last night from the Justice Department to the U.S. Attorney's Office in New York, instructing that office to drop the charges against the current mayor, Eric Adams. I wonder what you make of that directive. Obviously, you have an acting U.S. attorney now who's in a very difficult position, whether to take that advice and alienate probably the entire staff within that office or go along with it, I guess under the expectation that whoever succeeds her, be that Jay Clayton or someone else, is likely to put a rubber stamp on it. What do you make of the news? What does it tell you about the case that this office has built against the mayor?
I mean, what an outrageous miscarriage of justice. The Southern District has a tremendous history for doing corruption prosecution. And this says, no, we want you to do corruption. Instead, they had a strong case. They're not even saying the evidence in the case isn't strong. They know he took illegal campaign contributions, corrupted the buildings department, but they just want to wreck the justice system. And unfortunately, New Yorkers are going to pay the consequences.
Do you think that the mayor should resign? There's this swirl now about should he be pardoned, should he not have these charges brought against him? Should he step down given what's happened here?
Yes, he should resign. He's effectively being extorted by the Justice Department. He's only looking out for the interests of one New Yorker, and that's himself, not even speaking up when they come to take our lunch money.
There are many layers to this. It's a two-page memo. I should say the acting deputy attorney general is an alumnus of this office, of the SDNY, which makes this even more astonishing. But there's a footnote buried in it, which I flagged on Twitter and all the other platforms last night, and it's I just find it to be like an astonishing footnote. Quote, your office correctly noted in a February 3rd, 2025 memorandum, quote, as Mr. Bove, Emil Bove, the acting deputy attorney general, clearly stated to defense counsel during our meeting on January 31st, 2025, the government is not offering to exchange dismissal of a criminal case for Adams' assistance on immigration enforcement. A lot of absurdity baked in there and just the way that that's constructed. But this is something that you've honed in on in recent days. That is, was there some sort of deal brokered between the mayor and the president in Mar-a-Lago or elsewhere?
It sure looks like it. Elsewhere in the memo, it says we're doing this so that the mayor can get back to the business of fighting, quote unquote, illegal immigration. His job is to protect New Yorkers, not to do the president's bidding.
Do you agree, is David Gura more up to speed on this than I am, and of course, Mr. Landers, so are you, that the way the language is formed, there's a threat to the mayor if you don't do what we say, we're going to bring those charges back?
Dismissed without prejudice means we will be watching every step of the way. And if we're dissatisfied with your fealty to the Trump White House, we'll bring the charges back.
The difference is Landers studied this at Chicago. I got it from Perry Mason. That's the difference.
I can't help but draw a line to what now former President Biden did in the final days of his administration, making these preemptive pardons to his son and others. Look, President Trump could have done the same thing, but there is a flex, a power move here in doing this. You talked about the longstanding independence and proud independence of the SDNY. He's testing them effectively by doing this.
I mean, move fast and break things. He's breaking the Justice Department and the tradition of independent prosecution that the Southern District of New York has long had, and that'll mean more corruption.
You say he should resign. There's another means of recourse here if he doesn't do that. You, other Democrats, could go to the governor of the state of New York, go to Kathy Hochul and say, look, you have the power to get him to step aside, perhaps force him to step aside. Is that something that you and your fellow Democrats are thinking about and indeed would consider at this moment because of all of this?
I mean, the form of removal I'm focused on right now is the ballot box. New Yorkers can get rid of Eric Adams and restore integrity and effective government to City Hall. I mean, people are fed up not just with his corruption, but with his failure to deliver. People are fed up with Democratic mayors of big blue cities who can't govern, and that's what we can elect this year.
I want to get to your platform. One last question on this, based on what you just said there. In that memo is this criticism of this case being brought close to an election. I guess 9 months out now from an election is too close for comfort for this Justice Department. As you look at this campaign, how do you see this story being a through line, perhaps the through line as you and your fellow Democrats campaign against him?
I mean, New Yorkers know that Eric Adams has run a corrupt administration. I think it's 26 members of his administration have either been indicted or, are under investigation, including him. But he also has been failing to deliver on affordable housing, on public safety, on childcare, on just making the government run well. Right. So those will go together. What New Yorkers want is a safer, more affordable, and better run city. And that, I think, will be the through line of this campaign. That's why I'm running.
For all of you nationwide on your morning commute on Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, our new digital platform, YouTube, good morning, and subscribe to Bloomberg Podcast. An extensive conversation of our David Gura with Brad Lander. He counts the beans in New York. He's a comptroller, but far, far more of that. As David goes to your campaign, I want to frame this. I said to a family member, finally, whether you're Republican or Democrat, the former mayor of Chicago, Rahm, wrote an essay in the Washington Post. Democrats have become the party of permissiveness. That's ballot box poison. You have a history of progressivism. How does the left in the Democratic Party migrate to the center to compete?
Yeah, I mean, I want to give you some straight talk. I think progressives, including myself, were slow to respond to rising disorder and crime coming out of the pandemic. And we need to be real clear about it. So the number one commitment of my campaign is to end street homelessness for people with serious mental illness in New York City who are on the streets and subways. That is something a mayor could do. I've laid out a really detailed, ready on day one plan. Some of that is involuntary hospitalization. A lot of that is connecting people to housing and services so they're not on the subways or on our stoops, a danger to themselves and to others.
Tom and I travel, we go to Washington, go to elsewhere, and I think a lot of people like to rag on New York, like to bring up the fact that they think that the subways are unsafe, that there is a sense of a lack of good public safety in the city right now, and you can bring up statistics to push against that. But how do you deal with that feeling? What's in the zeitgeist here that if you're riding the subway, there is a danger that something could happen to you?
Yeah, and both things are true. I mean, we have more private sector jobs, more office-using jobs than ever in the city's history. People do want to be here, but if you're on the subway and you just heard the story that a unwell person, a mentally ill person, pushed someone onto the tracks, and then you see a homeless person who's mentally ill in your car, of course you're anxious. I have a friend whose 8-year-old daughter was pushed to the ground last week. So it's a real issue and a perception issue. But what we do is get those people connected to housing and services so they're not riding the subways, where that's not good for them and it's not good for riders. A New York City that ends street homelessness for people with serious mental illness will be a proud New York, and one that could show all those critics, look at how well we're doing, but that takes a new mayor. And that's what I'm running for.
How do you look at the relationship when it comes to transportation between New York City and the state government? And of course, the governor has weighed in on what needs to happen on subways to make them more safe. How important is that relationship? What would you do to improve that, to sort of harness that effective way to make things safer?
I mean, the city-state relationship to make the subways run well is critical. This is why I was a big proponent of congestion pricing, and when the governor put it on pause, I helped bring the lawsuits that sued to get it implemented. But of course, now we're working closely together to make sure it's implemented. Well, the numbers are great so far. Travel times are down. Traffic is down. Money is more people are on the subway. Now the city and state have to work together to deliver platform barriers, new station gates, new subway elevators, modern signal system, all the things that we have to work together to make sure it works.
I'm going to cut to the chase. It's real simple. I live in a fancy part of New York where I enjoyed a cigar in the street, and one day there's 7 police officers around me all of a sudden. And again, it's crime that you mentioned. It's the issue. It's almost like Nixon 68, 70, whatever. Brad Lander, how are you going to have a relationship with the NYPD? How do you form that as mayor versus bean counter going after contracts?
I mean, this is an important moment. I have to say, Jesse Tisch, who's now in there as police commissioner, is doing a great job so far, both doing reform, holding people accountable, and providing support. And that's the key.
A lone survivor of this administration.
I mean, honestly, the fact that the mayor's corruption has opened up an opportunity for reform is great. But I would love to keep Jesse Tisch as commissioner. I think she's got the right tone of accountability and rebuilding and reform and support.
But how are you? I need you to go out to Staten Island, next to where Mandolin Brothers was years ago. I need you to go to Staten Island and bond with people that look at progressives and go, you got to be kidding me. So how do you do that?
When I go, so this this is a connection from being bean counter. I work with the police pension fund to manage their pensions. So there was an officer, Officer Fayaz, who the mayor wouldn't allow to get line of duty benefits, and my office did. I worked with the police pension fund to make sure those officers who had long COVID could actually get their disability benefit. So I've got a track record of working with the union reps. I hope, I'll bring them out with me to Staten Island when I go to have that meeting, and I hope to do it, in a way that shows, of course, we want to support our officers. Everyone wants accountability from people who do the wrong thing, from cops and from elected officials.
I've got 3 kids in public school in this city. As much as there's been a rotating cast of police commissioners, you've had a rotating cast of chancellors as well. What are your top-line plans for the hugest school system in the country here to stabilize it? One of the reasons, candidly, why we moved to New York was the prospect of having universal pre-K. Funding has been an issue here in recent years. Your perspective, your platform when it comes to the schools.
My kids also went from pre-K to 12th grade in the New York City public schools, and they were lucky to have good schools, but boy, not everybody does. So look, you need a schools chancellor who recruits principals and superintendents who support their teachers, but also hold them accountable. The state has increased the money we're getting. That's an opportunity to reduce class size, which is something that this mayor has promised to do but really hasn't done yet. It's going to be on the next mayor to reduce class size with the money the state is giving us.
And for our audience, afterthought, when she was in elementary school here on the island of Manhattan, there were 11 languages in her first grade class.
Yeah.
I think you have to, as David says, did you say 3 offspring?
3,
I had no idea.
I mean, that's what's remarkable about this city. What other place has that?
Well, we're working at it. Okay, KMOX, you grew up with the Cardinals, which is like, I used to listen from Western New York, bouncing off the ionosphere. If somebody said to me my 10 great moments, one of them was a guy named Mario Cuomo talking to the former governor, and we said good morning to him and his family, about his time with the Pittsburgh Pirates. It was magical to hear Mario Cuomo talk about the Pittsburgh Pirates. One of his offspring may enter the race or is in it. I'm not sure the details. Is it too crowded a field? I mean, how, away from Mayor Adams' upset, how do you frame September and October to be? I mean, how do you frame into it?
Elections in June, so
June,
even sooner. I don't
me.
think New Yorkers will want to replace one corrupt chaos agent with another. This is someone who resigned in disgrace just ahead of impeachment after a dozen women who worked for him accused him of sexual harassment, who sent thousands of seniors to their deaths in nursing homes and then lied to their families about it to protect his $5 million book deal, who cut the subways, who cut 1,000 inpatient psychiatric beds, who doesn't care about New York City where he hasn't lived in 25 years. We're getting rid of one corrupt chaos agent. Let's not bring another in.
When you look at this field of challengers to the mayor, Democratic challengers, what are we going to sort out here? This is going to be a robust debate, I imagine, about the future of the Democratic Party here in New York. It's going to be part of this broader conversation about it here in the U.S. How important is it? How vital is it to have that conversation right now? What are we going to learn from this primary campaign?
Yeah, it's critical. Part of the reason in New York people shifted to voting for Trump is they haven't seen government working for them, and there is doubt about whether Democrats can govern big blue cities well. Folks like Michelle Wu are doing it in Boston. We have to do it in New York City. Get the cost of living under control. Confront and build affordable housing. Deliver on that child care and universal pre-K and 3K, and make the city safer.
Are we going to have a Gilded Age campaign? Michelle Wu in Boston's running against a Kraft offspring. There's a fair amount of money rolling around here. How do you frame out this path to June? I assume, how many people are in the race? You tell me. We don't know yet.
Right now,
you can't count that high.
Yeah, 8 or so,
whatever.
and we'll see about Cuomo getting in.
What do you perceive May to be like?
I mean, it's going to be busy. For me, it's going to be a question about who people think can actually run the city well. And that's the track record I have as the city's chief financial officer with a history of actually delivering. We managed $285 billion pension fund. Our audits have saved hundreds of millions of dollars. I can make government work, and I think that's what New Yorkers want.
Let me come full circle. Brought up that memo at the top. I read that footnote, which had that innuendo about immigration policy. And let's end there. And, a few weeks back, I was out at Floyd Bennett Field and saw the shelter that had been built there. I gather it's being emptied out or has been emptied out of migrants moved to New York City. How do you approach this issue, which is one that I think is flummoxing a lot of people? Here we are in a city that has historically welcomed so many. Now we have a federal administration that is wanting to constrict that. What is the duty of the mayor of this city here at this moment, where we've had this influx of people here, and a lot of people who are have left their home countries in great pain? Yes, many without documents have come here to New York. What's the mayor to do?
Yeah, I mean, New York City obviously doesn't control border policy. That's, federal. But what New York City can do is help those folks get to work. I mean, we need people working in construction, in our restaurants, in home care, in healthcare. So helping folks who have work authorization get to work, helping folks get work authorization, critical. And then we can't allow ICE to come into our schools, into our public hospitals. The Brooklyn District Attorney told this amazing story about how when his brother was murdered, which is why he became a prosecutor, it was somebody undocumented who was a witness, and the defense got that guy deported.
After testifying.
And there was no justice. And, that's what we need as a city that's keeping it the place where your daughter has 11 languages in her preschool class, but we also make it work for a thriving economy and a safe, successful city.
It was unbelievable the first time I walked into that
Classroom?
529, 11 languages. Is just
Yeah.
It was, forget about Ellis Island and all the emotion of a city. You think of Italy and the Jewish community decades ago, to witness in real time,
In microcosm, yeah.
11 languages in a perfect 529 school up on the east side was amazing. It was absolutely unbelievable. One of the great moments. 2 kids from Bangladesh, not a word of English, and those teachers went into it every day. Would you say goodbye to Mr. Landers? See
Yes,
if we
Brad
get him
Lander,
back here again.
Comptroller for New York City, candidate for mayor here in New York. Great to see you.
Jack Buck is smiling on us.
There we go.
Okay.
Oh, there you go.
Jack Buck is smiling on us. Brad, there's a pothole. How many times a week do you get that?
A lot.
A lot. Brad,
Yes.
Thank you so much.